Pulisic dentro, Rafa. Gol! Ebram! Gol! È l'azione più bella del mondo! È l'azione più bella!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by the invincible Anthony Torgrud.
Oh, invincible. That's a good one. I was just thinking we'll have to change that intro for next season since Tammy is unlikely to be here.
Yeah, we will. And we ain't got an awful lot to choose from, have we, in terms of memorable goals? It's funny because that's actually, going to be the topic of the episode. We're doing end of season awards, so we get to relive what a brilliant campaign we had in 2024-25. So that'll be fun. We'll do so with as much energy as we possibly can. Sometimes we come into these and we're absolutely flying, early morning, the caffeine's hitting. Today, maybe not, eh? Today we've both crashed a little bit.
Yeah, I had a long night. I went out with some buddies to watch what I found out was the Nation League final. I thought they just said the way it was presented was Spain-Portugal is at 3. You want to come watch it? Yeah, sure, I'll be there, whatever. I like a good bar, good game, I didn't know this was the final. So about 82nd minute is 2-2. And I go, hey, where are they at in their table? Look at me, and I was like their group, are they 1 and 2? They go, man, this is the final. I said, we got extra time? Like, yeah. Like, oh, okay.
Good game, though.
Yeah, so I was a little too deep. And then after that, they're like, let's grab dinner. I was like, I thought we were eating at the bar. And then after that, like, let's grab another drink. All right. Then now I'm here at 7 in the morning.
Sundays.
Yeah, it was just a long one. So
Yeah. I went Barcelona, was there Friday, Saturday, and then came back via Milan because it was a lot cheaper than flying direct. There was also a big music festival on at somewhere near Barcelona. So I think that's what made the flight so expensive. But coming back via Milan, I went to finally visit the new club shop on Via Dante, which is really, really cool. Very nice. 2-story. And yeah, I mean, the merch is the merch back. Saw the home shirt up close. You've got it.
yeah,
Yeah. But it was my first time seeing it in the flesh and love it. Absolutely
it's
love
fucking
it.
nice, isn't it? Did you grab one?
Yes, so nice. I didn't get one because for some reason there were €100 there. And if I buy one here, it's £80. Now, it doesn't work out that much different, but it is just cheaper for me to buy one here.
Yeah.
So I'll do that, but I'm definitely going to get one. I'm going to stand off. I'm going to stay away from getting a name on the back. But I was mostly blown away by all the fashion range that we have. Like, there's some really nice stuff that they put out. Just nice, simplistic T-shirts, the Club 1899 stuff. You wouldn't even know it was football. It just looks like a fashion brand.
I think they don't put that all on the website either. I think it is exclusive there because I've looked and the stuff that's on the site. Bless them if they think they're selling out. It's not the greatest.
Yeah. There's some honking stuff on there, but the shop was, and they had all the 125th anniversary on stuff on a slight sale. It was like 25% off, so not enough for me to be like, yeah, right, I must cop all this stuff, but I imagine it'll get a little bit cheaper over time. Anyway, before we dive in, as we said, we're doing end of season awards, and some of them are negative awards, so stay tuned for that. Thank you to our Substack founding members. I'm going to read them in reverse because we've got a new one to welcome into the fold, Gianluca. Thank you for signing up, Gianluca. Really appreciate it. We've also got Medicare, Ken, Roberto Racinos, Marco Villela, Tarek, JT Physio, Mike Schulz, Heavenly 13, Derek Favretto, Merlin Finker, Nasser, Carlo Fassi, Rajat Rel, Escobar, Luke Villano, Mats, MJ, Kemin, Joey Goller, Moritz Pullman, Tito Mack, and Des Wins McGlynn. Appreciate all the support over on the Substack, which is our premium content platform.
Did we lose MJ again?
No, I think I said him.
Oh, okay.
MJ, if I didn't say him, but he's still there, which is good because that dragged on too long. Over on the Substack, you can find content such as the most recent pub chat, which Lorenzo and Stefano did, which was about Milan hitting the reset button and what the big sales mean for the future of the club. Not too dissimilar to the bonus podcast that me and you did Oh, sorry, me, you, and Madison did. But we sort of dived more specifically into the Reinders thing and how the club got themselves into a position where they ended up accepting less than what we thought was fair market value. And we'll probably talk about that later in the episode. But also the situation with expiring contracts and a lack of leverage. Isaac's done a fantastic bonus article. You can try a week for free on the Substack. I would sign up just to go and read this. It explains Milan's budget for the 2025 summer transfer window. He breaks it down into various sections, and at the end there's an estimation of the money that we might have to spend based on so many different factors, such as outgoing players, the settlement agreement, and how financial fair play now works, where we look from an accounting point of view. So that's a brilliant breakdown. And then you can also get the newsletter, which this week was about Luka Modric's dream potentially coming true of joining Milan. And in that is the news bulletin with all the big stories from the past week. So, end of season awards. Here we go. So I have got, how many have we got? 10 categories? It might be 9 or 10 categories, which I know sounds like a lot, but some I think are going to be easier than others to make picks for. Have you pre-picked?
I didn't even read the list, and I know you sent it to me like 2 days ago, but no.
I've added a bit to it, but I've got my picks, so I think we'll be able to riff off from that.
Yeah.
Look, it wasn't a good campaign, you know. It feels difficult to award much positive to anybody. There's no two ways about it. Going through it again, we finished 8th in the table. We missed out on European competitions entirely. We got knocked out of the Champions League by Feyenoord. And we lost the Coppa Italia final. We won the Supercoppa, and that ended up being just it was like a false dawn almost when Conceição came in and won that after just a few days. But yeah, more negative than positive. But we're going to start with a positive, which is the player of the season. Now, I've got someone who is basically an ex-player already. It was Tijani Reinders for me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Contributions, 15 of them goals. He added that end product that we were kind of crying out for after an impressive debut season with us. Look, to be honest, and we don't need to dive into what the departure of Reinders means in the scheme of these awards or whatever, but the midfield in general struggled all season for me. We had big problems in transition and stuff, but none of it, it felt like it didn't matter as much when Tijani was scoring every time he got into the box, you know. Scored some big goals for us, scored in a derby, scored at the Bernabeu. So, yeah, he added goals to his game and he added big performances as well. It was between him and Pulisic for me. Those are the two that remained key contributors throughout.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Pulisic because A, don't want to pick the same person. B, I'm bitter that he's left.
Land of the free home of the brave as well.
Yes, sir. We lost to whoever the hell we played the other day. I don't know, 2-1.
Has he lost every game, Pochettino?
He's lost his last 3, but not every game.
Fuck.
Just feels like it. But yeah, picking Pulisic. Most player of the match awards on the team. It was tied with Reinders. And I believe he had our highest rating average for the season as well. So I'm just going to pick him.
He did. And this is where I should mention as well. Isaac did the article again on the Substack where he went through all of his player ratings and sort of picked out the disaster classes of the season, the best individual performances of the season, but the average overall rating for each player. And Pulisic was indeed number 1. Reinders actually came in at 3, behind Maignan in 2. And I think what's interesting about that is that it kind of shows where Maignan was. It was either a 9 out of 10, or he had a lot of subpar, especially in January and February, that dragged it down a little bit. But those odd elite games that he had were enough to bump him up into second spot. So yeah, flop of the season is next on the list. I have got. You go first.
Okay.
Okay. You're about to launch into.
Well, I think the easiest thing to do is pick someone who was the worst player of the season, right? That's what you're supposed to do with this. But I'm taking it a bit differently. When I think of flop, I think of someone who has high expectations and doesn't deliver. So it'd be easier to pick like an Emerson, someone that was bad, but everyone knew was going to be bad going into the season, and didn't even play the second half of the season. But instead, I'm going to pick someone who has very high expectations, who we expect a lot from, and we've talked a lot of negative things about this season for on-field and off-field antics. Teo Hernandez.
Yeah, exactly the same logic as me. Yeah, I thought about the difference between expectation and reality. Massively let us down at some key moments of the season. Like you can almost put up with him being on average a 5 out of 10 all season, right?
Mhm.
If he wasn't also doing the dickhead stuff of like stealing a penalty, the cooling break, the red card against Feyenoord, like all that stacked up to be. He was a disaster. Now, of course, there's mitigating circumstances. The poor bloke has never had a proper deputy, so he never gets rest. And I think also, that with the contract renewal stuff in this season, it's not a contract year because he's out of contract, obviously, in 12 months. But I think now the way football's going, the penultimate year is the contract year.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be sorted now, otherwise we know how this ends in the summer. And I think that weighed on his mind. We know that there was off-field stuff that was surrounding him at one point in the season, which we won't dive into. But all that stuff, I guess, can add up to having a poor season. But he's worn the armband enough times to know that he needs to set a better example and set higher standards than that. So I would agree. But in terms of who was actually a player who contributed virtually nothing positive, it would probably be Musa, right?
Yeah.
Which, it feels like low-hanging fruit to just bash him, which is why I'm glad we both picked Teo, because it's relative to expectations. But yeah, in terms of the player who most of the time you're putting your hands on your head saying, what the fuck is he doing? It was him. But there's a lot of contenders for it, to be honest. There were a lot of letdowns in there. But yeah, let's move on. Best goal. Now, obviously, it's hard to remember all of the.
Don't.
We score about 80 this season.
Uh,
But I've got one, so I'll go first if you want. I really liked Rafael Leao's goal against Udinese away in that 4-0. He gets the cut back about, 22, 23 yards out and whacks it first time with his right foot, like the outswing into the top corner. That was the technique to do that is ridiculous. Like it's hard enough to hit it across your body with that power, but to do it with the placement and the curl, and then obviously we went on to absolutely rout them. So that stood out as like a brief shining moment in a very difficult 2025.
Yeah. My best goal probably fits into the best moment category a little bit better, but I'm going to go Abraham's last second winner in the Super Cup in the intro. I mean, that was the moment I celebrated, I think, the most this season. You could actually pick Pulisic's opener in the first derby because we hadn't won any game yet in the season, and that was actually a fantastic, great goal as well. So maybe that's a good contender, but I'm going to stick with the Abraham one just because we were down 2-0. We thought we were out, and then we came back, and then we were all expecting to go straight to penalties, and then he just made that great turn trick, and then the shot. It was nothing spectacular out of this world, but it was just a good, clean striker goal, and it was 93rd, 94th minute to win us our first trophy of the season, only trophy of the season, and get one over Inter, something they failed to do all season. So
yeah, that's a good one. I mean, best goal is, I guess, favorite goal as well, right? So the goal that you enjoyed the most. Also, that was a really nice team goal. In the 93rd minute to have the. It was Pulisic, wasn't it, who played the passing behind for Leao, where he kind of like threaded the needle and got it to the byline, and then the cut back from Leao, who'd made a smart run. So it was actually objectively a good goal as well. We cut them open there. But yeah, I mean, look, there weren't many rockets or amazing solo goals this time. A lot of normal goals, and that was a tough category, really. Best save, obviously it's going to be Maignan.
I mean, yeah.
and I've got his against Genoa. that ridiculous one down low to his right where
Yes.
Macias comes in, and it's nearly a Pulisic own goal in the end, but he gets down and it's jammed against the ground, but he manages to strong hand it away. That was nuts. I said at the time that that's a contender for the best save I've ever seen, just because the ball was behind him. Like, I don't know how he did it still. But yeah, that one stood out for me. There's quite a lot though. Like, he did have some, where he showed his amazing reflexes, and sometimes that's what you get from him. He makes the impossible saves possible and then lets in the ones that he should.
Yeah, the problem with this for me is I really should have prepped better, because I know that there was incredible moments. Like, I can remember a double save. I don't remember who took the shot or even what team we were playing, but I know that there was like crazy moments. So I am going to go the same goal as you, or not goal, rather, the same save, for all the same reasons. I mean, it was a great one, and that's like one of the few that I could remember the details on. So
there was a couple in the derby that stand out. I think one of them was in the first game that we won. Thuram hit one low and hard, and Maignan, it was going across goal into the bottom left corner, and Maignan seemed to be kind of wrong-footed by it, but he managed to get down and palm it away. That was a good one. Then I think there was a Çalhanoğlu free kick or long-distance strike that he tipped onto the bar. That was another good one. But yeah, sadly, and we are going to come on to talk about Maignan, but it was more the season where his errors were remembered in greater magnitude than the saves that he did end up making. Best game, so I guess you could say performance of the season. Go ahead.
Real Madrid 3-1.
Yeah, I've got the same. Yeah.
I think that was the game everyone before the season started wrote off, even when we didn't know that Fonseca was going to be bad. When we had only seen him during preseason, and he dominated Man City, dominated Barcelona, and another team. Who was it? I can't remember. But
Real Madrid, Barcelona, and City.
Oh, it was Real Madrid in preseason as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So we still wrote this game off. We thought, okay, now it's the real game. Now it's the Champions League. We won't win that one. And then the season started, and we didn't have a win in our first three. And then we beat Inter, and we're like, all right, cool. But then we still didn't have anything great. So, and we didn't even start that strong in the Champions League. So everything was saying, you're not going to win this one. And we just came alive, just turned it up. And it was incredible. Definitely the best performance of the season, I think, as a team.
Yeah, we were absolutely outstanding, weren't we? And it was almost like a shock awakening in the sense that, as you rightly recall, we never thought that was going to happen. Not only we could have won every game up to that point, right? And you still don't think you're going to go and win at the Bernabeu. But the fact we'd started the season in the way that we did, I just didn't think we had a hope. We looked absolutely hopeless defensively. The attack hadn't clicked enough for us to get out of those defensive holes that we created for ourselves. But yeah, we were outstanding from minute 1 to 90. And I still remember what Fonseca said after the game, where he said, this will be an easier game for us than Cutlery a few days later, because they play zone defense rather than man-to-man, and how hard man-to-man is in comparison and stuff. And you really did get that vibe. Like, I don't know, that there's something that I said it when we were going through bad patches under Conceição, that like the peaks that we hit under Fonseca were enough to make you think, there's something here to hang on to, we dominated that first derby and won that, and then we go and win that game at the Bernabeu. We had a couple of thumping home wins. I think we beat Venezia 4-0 and stuff, and it's like there's something here where the potential is really high. We just need to, like, the ceiling's fine, we just need to raise the floor. And yeah, unfortunately he never got that consistency going, and he was gone by the end of December, but we still had that memory. And we scored a really lovely goal in that one as well, the third one, where it worked it down the left and then Reinders finished it off. But we fully deserved it. That was the thing. It wasn't really a smash and grab. We'd like dominated from near enough minute 1 to 90. So that was a fantastic game. Worst game. How long have you got?
Got a lot to choose from. What was our largest? Go ahead.
I'll go first. If you like. Feyenoord at home is what I've got, the second leg, Champions League. Just because that wasn't our worst performance. It It wasn't great either, don't get me wrong. But that was probably the lowest feeling, I think, just because we scored inside a minute. And it's like, and I still look back at this game and think that this is where the team imploded. Now, even though we'd had, quite an aggressive January window where we brought in 5 players, top 4 had not vanished definitively at that point. It was going to be tough, but we brought in the reinforcements. And we looked kind of primed for a run, at least into the next round of the UCL, to bank a bit of money. We lose the first leg 1-0, but it's like, okay, get them back home. We can't play that badly again. Then we equalise after a minute. And what happened from then on was just shocking, The Teo red card, the second yellow being for a dive, awful marking for their equaliser that ended up winning the tie. And then, I think that's the moment where the players took a bit of a fatal blow, really, and they never got back up after that. I'm picking it more as like I've actually got a moment category in here, but it's more like a season-defining game, if you like, in a negative sense.
Yeah, I'm just looking at all our old results. The largest margin of defeat we had last season was only 2 goals. And the most we ever conceded in a game was 3 against Liverpool.
Roma.
We lost 3-1.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I think Roma as well, didn't we? No, that was 2-1, wasn't it? Or was
Roma
the most
3-1?
Ah, you're right. Yeah, 3-1 as well. Oh, because I forgot I turned that game
10.
off.
Yeah,
so I switched over to the other one. Yeah.
Because Jimenez swung an elbow at Mancini, and
honestly, and we had the red card. Oh, it was Conceição who got the red on it. Yeah, that's a nightmare game. That's awful. But
yeah,
I think I'm looking at all these games, and like there's so many where we went behind early quick, like Fiorentina, we lost, or we were down 2-0 in the 10th minute, came back 2-2. Jovic and a Abraham goal, but we conceded again another own goal. It's hard. I mean, I'm gonna go the Lazio second match where we were down 1-0 fairly early, 28th minute, and then we got a red card. Pavlovic got one in like the 67th, and then we actually scored an equalizer late. Chukwueze, 84th minute, and then we give away a penalty in the 98th minute to Pedro.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was just like a culmination of every bad moment. And it everything was self-inflicted in that game. The goals were not world-class goals. We had opportunities that we squandered, giving away a red card. It was a silly challenge. I don't remember exactly what, but I remember thinking that was ridiculous. Why would you do that? And then obviously the red card. I'm sorry, I just said that. This is how tired I am, guys. It's 8 a.m. I'm falling asleep here. And then just to concede a penalty to lose it when I think at this moment, had we have won, we would have crept into top 4 for that week. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, but I can't remember exactly, to be honest. But the 3 points would have been very useful.
Yeah, because Lazio was one position above us.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously because we lost, we dropped further. So,
6 pointer. We lost basically every 6-pointer. What they call a direct clash in Italy, and that was problematic. Did we? So against top 8 teams, that's
we beat Inter. That was it.
48 points available, and I think did we take 8 of them?
We beat Bologna.
Yeah.
And Inter, and then a draw against Inter.
Yeah, and a draw against Roma. I think that was it.
The first one,
I think it was like 8 points out of 48. You
We
don't
drew 0-0 against Juve in the first game.
Yeah, maybe it was 10 actually. But either way, it was a shocking record. And
it was 2 wins against the top 8. I know that. Inter and Bologna, that was it.
It's exactly why we ended up where we were, on the outside looking in. We could never get those results when it mattered. And it's just setback after setback. Right, I've got best moment here. And happy to go first because it's kind of been mentioned already. But I've got Gabbia's derby winner against Inter because of what it meant. Like, it was a performance where we deserved to win, first and
Yeah.
foremost. You know, we were the better team. But it was, again, like going into the game with no hope because we'd started the season so badly. We learned that Fonseca's going to try this wild 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1 thing, and we're all like, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
But then Gabbia to score the goal, I think, does make a difference to me. You know, the boyhood Milan fan, and he's got his moment in Derby folklore, snaps a streak of 60 feet in a row against them. And in the end, it kind of set the scene for how the derbies would go all season. But I just remember feeling extreme euphoria to finally get one over on them, and for it to happen in that way, basically a last-minute winner. I thought that was, I thought that was good. But Super Coppa final, similar vibe, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to pick the Super Copa final, even though it probably is the best moment of the season in terms of celebration and whatnot. But I'm going to go the second leg of the Coppa Italia semi against Inter as well, just because we have so many wins to pick from against them. A 3-0 victory. I mean, 1-1 in the first leg. Again, we were up early, and I believe that was the game they equalized. No, that was the league game they equalized late, right?
Both. Sorry. The league
it was
game
like
was the
65th
94th.
minute or something like that.
Yeah.
But 1-1, and we thought there's no way we're going to win or avoid defeat a fifth time this season against Inter. There's just no chance. And at this point, we knew where each team was going to be in the table. We knew they were competing for a treble at this point. We knew we were competing for 8th place. And they dominated the opening 25, 30 minutes. I mean, it was all them.
Yeah.
And then Jovic brace, and then a Reinders goal in the 85th minute to just put it away. And a 3-0 victory against them hasn't happened, I think, since the game you were at in the 15-16 season, right?
That's right. Yeah. Back in the Yang and Alex. Yeah.
Yep. And Icardi hit the post on the penalty.
I think you can definitely make a case for that being the best performance as well, because the Real Madrid game was kind of weird, right? It was almost like a basketball game. I was surprised how open it was and everything. And look, we won. And in terms of making a statement in world football, obviously beating Real Madrid away in the Champions League is bigger. But that second leg against Inter was so like professional. Like it was such a pragmatic, not smash and grab, like just a brilliant plan executed. And in the end, it really could have been like 5 or 6-0. You know, we missed some big chances to proper humiliate them. Thankfully,
and this was when we switched to the 3-4-3 as well. So we were trying a new formation. I don't remember what game we had switched to that, but
it was the Udinese game, the 4-0.
Okay, so it was like right before that,
Yeah. That was a fantastic performance. Worst moment, it's kind of cheating, but in terms of a moment, the last 10, 15 minutes of the Coppa Italia final, being there for it obviously gives it a greater bearing on how I feel. But just like watching on as the players helplessly passed it around the back and showed absolutely no urgency to try and create any danger. And it was just minute by minute, like, you know, grains of sand in an hourglass, watching the only thing we had left slip away, and they were doing nothing to try and fix it. You know, it was like, it was driving everyone in the stands insane. Back to Maignan, to, you know, back to the centre back, to then lump it out of play, or we'd cross it and it'd go over everybody's head. And I remember thinking, I said to the people I was with at the time that the players let us down that night, but I remember thinking the next day when I was at Rome Central Station, or whatever it's called, and there were loads of Bologna fans in their shirts with the flags that had the Coppa Italia final thing on, and they had scarves, souvenir scarves and all that stuff. I'm thinking, for us, it was more about Europe, whereas for them, it was about a trophy, you know? And I think that made a bit of a difference. It's kind of like the United Spurs Europa League final. Like for United, it was more about top four, Champions League place. And for Spurs, it was about a trophy drought. And the Coppa Italia final kind of felt like that. But just those last 10 minutes, sat there like, really, this is going to be the culmination of our season, and they're going to do fuck all about it.
Yeah, I think there was just so many factors that went into why that moment made me feel the worst as a fan. Everything you mentioned, you know, this was our only opportunity left at European ball. It was going to be another trophy to put a staple on the season and say, look, yeah, we did shit, but at least we won 2 trophies. A trophy we haven't won in I think 25 years, something along those lines. So
yeah, 2003, yeah. So
there was a lot, and it was a team 5 days prior we beat 3-0. You should be able to score 1 goal, right? And it looked like they just never were even going to try. When I read worst moment, I thought of like one specific moment, one tiny passage of play. And so I'm going to stick with it. But it was the 7th minute against Torino's second leg when Mignon kicked the ball straight into Chao's head at point blank and it bounced in for an own goal. It was just like, fuck, man. It was that was like, we might have came back to win that game even, but it was Drew. Okay, so it's like, really, this is a keeper that we're all talking about as like one of the best in the world, who now is wants away for low money, and you look at this moment, think, yeah, this is why they're offering 10 and not 25.
That was. I'm just looking when we lost 2-1. We equalised, didn't we, through Reinders, and then they scored straight up at the other end. Yeah, we lost that game. That was 22nd of Feb, and that was when Mignon was at his most scrutinised because he'd had a really bad start to the year.
That was when the contract renewal was pulled.
Yeah,
it was agreed. And then that game happened, and they said no.
And this is where I'm like, at the moment, where things are right now, the revisionism is fucking frightening. Like in the decisive period of the season, he let us down massively, and you've got people who wanted us to commit, 35 mil gross to his contract past the age of 30, and the same people who were like, let's blow it up, and Teo and Mignon have got to go, don't offer them a renewal, are now like, what were they doing? How can they let the...
Yeah.
Just fucking remember how we felt at points in the season, and don't...
It's hard to do. Even right now, like, there's a fire alarm going off. Not in my house, though.
I was going to say...
I was like, it was weird.
Reason to dash.
It's hard to do, though. I mean, even doing this where, like, we're supposed to look through the season and pick stuff and look at moments, it's hard to remember everything, the highs and the lows, It's such a long season now with so many games that, like, it really is hard to remember every moment. And I think that's why there's so much revisionism that goes into transfers.
Yes.
You remember your attachment to the player because there have been so many highs. But objectively, I do think, like, Teo's time's up. I think he's proven his time's up. And Mignon, like, I think you have a few more really good years out of him. But if he were to leave as well, looking at the replacements we've lined up, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think you could survive on both. I don't want him to leave, but it sounds like he's going to. So, you got to prep yourself and move on.
What we want becomes irrelevant the moment the player wants to leave. And that's the bridge is burned there for me. Yeah. Like, what a captain. Like, there was a really good article. Let me just try and quickly find it, that Milan News did. It was like a bit of an opinion column type thing. And it was the headline was that the club were unjustifiable and guilty in the failings of the season, but the players are abandoning the ship after contributing to sinking it. And I think that's like quite a good phrase, and that's sort of how it feels. It's like, all right, I can sort of understand. Reinders City come knocking. We've listed all of the positives of moving there, but there is that moment when it passes a certain line, and it's like they really want to go, like they're desperate to leave, and it's like, hang on a minute, you put us in this fucking mess, have a bit of accountability, but that doesn't exist in football anymore.
And at the same time, it's like they put us in the mess. Why would we not want to replace them with someone who could get us out of it?
That's another way to look at it. Yeah. But it is what it is. Final two that I've got, and we can do these both in one go. I've got underrated and overrated players. So based on sort of what the fan base discourse is around them, a player that you think maybe didn't get enough credit for the season that they had, and a player who got too much credit. I can start if you want.
Yeah.
So for underrated player, I've got Tammy Abraham. Because it's almost like it's just been accepted that he's not going to stay, and he'll have had a season on loan where I think he had 17 goal contributions and
10
was
goals.
Statistically our best striker, across all competitions. And I think that when you consider that he arrived to be a backup, and Morata got faith time and time again, and then left. And then Jimenez arrives, and at one point he was like third or maybe even fourth in the pecking order. Despite the fact that every time he got sort of opportunities, he seemed to take them.
Yeah.
And I thought that overall he was probably our most consistent forward as well. And he showed some really good stuff in terms of his link-up play. He had a couple of really nice assists as well, where he played balls in behind and stuff. And he was fired up for that Roma game in the Coppa where he scored a brace, and it was a lovely brace. So I think that it'll be really strange when we look back at that one season he had and think those numbers aren't too bad. But where we are right now, there just seems to be no intent to keep him at all.
Yeah.
Maybe for good reason, I don't know. But I just think that, I think maybe underrated.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. I'm going to go with Pavlovic, actually, as my most underrated. I know he's not the perfect center back, and he did start a little poorly under Fonseca, but I really think he grew into the season and actually overall was one of our better defenders. There's a few content creators online that are very vocally anti-Pavlovic, and I think that's kind of spread to other people who just consume content and think, okay, he must be bad. And so it's kind of spread like that, and that's why I think he's underrated, is there's a lot of hate for him. But I think he's actually really good. Yes, he's green, he makes mistakes, and sometimes he's a bit of a donut, but I think overall there's more there than not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think you could have probably made the prediction that he would take some time to adapt to Serie A, right? He comes from playing for such an aggressive, high-pressing team like Red Bull Salzburg, playing in a different formation entirely for his national team. We then switched to a three-man defence, and that's when we got the best out of him. I don't think it's a coincidence. But just being such an aggressive player and wanting to be so proactive, I thought teething problems were always going to be there, and so it proved to be. But you're right. But by the end, I think none of us are calling for him to leave now. Whereas as we went into that January, and there was was it Galatasaray offered up
Someone
15, 20, and we were like, yeah, just get your money back. It was at that point where we were just trying to undo all the mistakes of the previous summer.
Yeah.
And now it's like there's something there. I still think that that's the case with all the centre backs that we have.
Yeah.
There's none of them where I'm pointing at them like, you were the problem, off you go. I think Chow under Allegri could be good because he likes four-man defence, likes one of them to be able to play out. I think, Tomori was better in a three-man defence, but he'd be the one that maybe if the right offer came in, you would consider selling. Pavlovic, who we've spoken about, maybe Allegri might like some of that aggression if channeled in the right way. And then, of course, Gabbia, who has probably been the most consistent centre-back since he returned from that loan at Villarreal. So, yeah, there's a bit of something there. And Pavlovic is a decent shout. You forget as well that just because he looks like a 33-year-old or whatever, he's actually 24. So, we've got some good years from him yet if he can sort of learn his craft a little bit. The overrated player I've gone for a lot of the reasons mentioned before, is Maignan. It's just because of the revisionism thing. It's like everybody now is screaming for him to stay. I think in an ideal world, Maignan shows a determination to stay, and we managed to reach an agreement over a renewal, and you'd keep him around. You'd say you don't want he is still a pillar of the dressing room, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think if you try and change too much at once, it becomes hard, not necessarily just from a dressing room dynamic point of view. It's just like playing whack-a-mole in the transfer window, So if you can just lock down a goalkeeper that's going to be okay most of the time, then I think most will be in favour of that. But it's gone a bit too far the other way. People are acting as if it's an absolute disaster that he's leaving. When we could both reel off 6 or 7 goalkeepers that we could realistically afford, who could come in and do as good a job, if not better. And yet you've got people talking as if it's the end of the world.
Yeah. Mine should come as no surprise to anyone who's listened to this season, but Alex Jimenez. To me, he's a punk. I don't like his attitude. I think he runs around just like a busy idiot. It's something that we criticize so many of our players for doing, but he gets applauded for it. It's strange to me. It's because he's young. People really like him because the other option is, Emerson Royale. Like I get that part. I think he's better than Emerson Royale, but that's still, to me, I think we need another right back or right wing back, whatever we're going to use him.
Yeah.
And I will say, when we switched to 3 at the back and he was a right wing back, he was much better.
Yes.
I don't think I know that he was poor defensively. And when I brought that up to people online, they said, well, shouldn't be playing defense anyways. He's a winger. Okay, well, at that point in time, he had 0 goal contributions to his name, but about 8 yellow cards this season. I mean, that's behavioral problems right there. And if you're a winger, where's your goal contributions? After the formation switch, he ended up getting 2 assists, one against Roma, one against Inter as well, not 3-0. So good on him. He did get better, and I had said it at the time as well, but he also was the reason Mignon was injured at one point this season,
Oh, yeah.
that crazy concussion to him. And yeah, it's not all his fault. I recognize that as well. But overall, I don't think he contributed positively to our team in the way that people make it seem like. I think where was another? Oh, in the 1-1 Inter game in the league when we conceded, that was Kyle Walker's fault, but also his. He could have passed the ball. He had a through ball to go forward. And I think he made the right decision to hold it. But because he made that decision, we then conceded a goal. So, but typically you would look at that situation and go, okay, there's, 10 seconds left in the game. Why go for another goal? Let's just hold it. But again, he passed it back, and then Kyle Walker gave it away, and then went into a goal. So there's a lot of back and forth on him, and overall, I don't think he's a terrible player. I just think he gets way too much credit for not enough, and that's why he's my most overrated player.
Yeah. Interesting one. I think there's always he's only 20, but if you're old enough, you're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait, if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's what they say.
Yeah.
I feel for him a little bit in the sense that, he first started playing games as a left back, and he's right-footed, so it's not his natural side, but it's like, here's Teo's deputy. It's not even the right side he should be playing on. And he was being played as a left winger, then he was played as a right winger, then he went back to left winger, and then got moved to right back and then to right wing back. So he's basically played every corner of the pitch, which is hard enough to do when you're 19, 20. Especially when you've got to adapt to a new league. I mean, he played a bit for the Futuro at the start of the season, so it was quite the jump. I think we've seen just about enough of him at right wing back, but now my concern is if we are switching to a 4-man defence under Allegri, where does he play? Is he going to become a backup winger again? Because as you said, the end product hasn't always been there. Might he like him because of how hard he works? If Salamakers comes back and stays, aren't they basically the same?
Yeah.
Except one of them actually has a bit of end product. He's not a natural right back. Never will be. He's not big enough. He's not strong enough. He's not good enough defensively. And I don't see him bulking out massively, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're left with that dilemma again of where to play him. But I think second half of the season when when we switched formation, his performance is definitely picked up.
I just did the long move.
Yeah, I don't see what Real Madrid want to do. If they want to buy him back, then it's money in it. But I can see him staying around, to be honest. And that versatility is something that Allegri might like.
Is it because he's versatile, or is it because they didn't know where to put him? They just needed a body. The most moldable person's a young kid.
Probably a bit. Yeah, probably a bit of both. But I just don't understand because they see the head coach and the coaching staff see these players every single day in training, and yet it felt like everybody was saying the same thing with him. Like, not a fullback, just not a fullback. Like, he can't defend. It's not that he can't learn to defend. You can pick up on certain things, of course, with the right level of coaching, and maybe Allegri will bring that to him. I don't know. Just like a size and profile wise, it didn't look like a fullback to me. And there were a few games when he got absolutely turned inside out. And, I remember the derby when he left DiMarco wide open and stuff like that. And you're just thinking, wow, that, there's very raw is what you would say. I think as a wing back, maybe serviceable. But, let's say Allegri decides he liked what he saw from that 3-man defence. You're probably still looking for a starting right wing back. Or you're going with Salamakers and Jimenez and saying you two need to do the same job, basically, because Salamakers had a massive resurgence with the 3-man defence under Ranieri as well. Anyway, that's end of season awards wrapped up. Let's do some listener cues where I hope to hit on some of the major topics that are doing the rounds. Nino on the Discord asks, if we do sell Leao for a decent sum of cash, who could you see replacing him realistically? Now, we'll use this opportunity to do a bit of a rumour roundup on him. Bayern have come in, and it's believed that they put forward an offer of around about 60 to 70 million in cash and various counterparts. So Kim Min-jae got a mention, Leon Goretzka, João Paulinho. So they're basically just throwing up player plus cash to try and reduce that cash sum required. And we've said no, it has to be cash only. The valuation is believed to be north of 100 million. And it doesn't look like he's going at the moment. And I think that is something where fans would have the right to ask a question, because the other situations were kind of backed into a corner. But here it's like, Leao's still got time left on his deal, and it sounds like Allegri and Tari want to build around him rather than sacrifice him. So I think this one would go down pretty badly if it happened. But, I'll open up with a question to you. What amount would you consider selling for?
So my dog just threw up.
Okay.
So I'm going to pause the recording. I'm going to clean it up, and then I'll answer your question when we return. So
fantastic. You got time to think.
Yeah. All right. I'm back. Sorry about that, everyone. Fans on, as you can see. The room smells like vinegar, but hey, it's cleaner. Guilty dog right there.
I'd say it was an apt reaction to our season from Chuck.
Yeah, honestly, it really was. Now he's back to sleep like nothing ever happened. Oh, maybe not. Who knows? Don't do it again, I swear. Anyways, yeah. Okay, so what price would I sell Leao for? The offer that we're seeing floated right now is 60 mil plus a player. If they get that up to 75 or 80 plus a player, and that player is a guy like Kim Min-jae or even Goretzka, I'm tempted because I think we move away from wingers. I think we switch to a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-1-2. You get rid of Leao, big money. Chukwueze's already one foot out the door. Pulisic moves to attacking mid. We've been linked with a million strikers this summer. You get, it's Santiago Jimenez up top with, Jovic is gone, Tammy's gone, but you got Camarda, Retegi's linked, Lorenzo Luca's linked, Vlahovic is linked. You don't get linked with starting level strikers unless you plan on using them. So I think that might be where things are headed. And Allegri does better under a two striker formation, I think. So I think that could be the route. I think that's the way that they might be building this, and we'll see what happens.
Could Leao play as a second striker? Because there was
that
that thing about
for originally.
There was the thing about, I can't remember which journalist said it, but it's probably Pellegatti, it normally is. But apparently Allegri, who hadn't missed a single one of our games last season, said to someone that he's close to, I see Leao as a second striker. And we know how much he requires the non-strikers to participate in the defensive phase. Maybe he's just thinking, nah, I can play the two up front and it will work that way. That's a possibility. Yeah. Again, I keep coming back to it. Sky, for example, is saying that he's going to play a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. Now, I wouldn't hate a 4-3-3 if that's what he really believes is the best, and you hope that the signings and sales are made to ease that transition. But I refuse to believe that if Allegri has watched us for the entirety of the last season, that he hasn't seen how much better we were with the 3-man defense and thought that's something to build on. So it wouldn't surprise me if he tries a bunch of different formations and then settles on something. But I see Leao as a fit in either of the 4-3-3 or playing with two strikers. So there's that possibility. But yeah, it could certainly shape the decision in terms of if we sell. I don't think we're going to sell him because I think the Reinders one was already quite far along when Tari and Allegri came in, and they've just had to kind of take the PR hit with that, and they are getting bashed for it, because it hurts to lose your player of the season or candidate for player of the season. And the Teo and Maignan thing, again, people are overreacting a bit, in my opinion, but they are aware of the leverage problem that we have there. Whereas with Leao, it's like there's no real reason to do it. It doesn't sound like he's agitating for a move. If anything, he's denying that. He commented like the sleeping face emoji to the idea of him pushing for an exit. So yeah, might be to replace him is difficult because again, it's like the Reinders thing with the midfield. Are you using the cash to go out and get 2-3 starter level players to completely rebuild the department? Or are you trying to spend bulk of it on one player and go like for like, Igor Paxiao is someone who stood out for me, the Feyenoord guy. He definitely stood out. What feels more feasible is moving Pulisic to the left if we are to play with wingers and to sign a right winger, in which case it would not surprise me if Allegri was to go for Orsolini or Chiesa, maybe. Something
we have
like
been
that.
With Chiesa, yeah.
But I do think that the way that we're going to play under Allegri is where Allegri teams play, contain and counter. I think if you lose Leao, you need somebody explosive, to continue that counter threat. You can't have two technical wingers on both sides, I don't think. So I think we would need some genuine pace in there. Who that might be, I don't know. Not paid to find them, but there are quick wingers out there, obviously. I don't. My gut feeling is he doesn't go. I think it would.
I don't
be
think
too
he will
much.
either. Yeah,
I think it would be too much in one summer for us to try and process and fix on the fly. Tempus Fugit asks, completely hypothetical, but I recall when Calciopoli happened that Inter raided Juve's squad. We weren't cleared until much later, and we missed out. They went on to win several titles in a row off the back of that team. Should the rumours be believed about Inter, could we see Milan take any of their players? Who would you want to buy?
I don't know doing it, to be honest. But I've had the thought, but I don't think we would, because it's tough. There would have to be some sort of exit available to them, like low money exits or free exits. But I wonder how many of them would stay and fight to bring him back up. You remember Buffon stayed and helped.
Yeah, Del Piero.
They had stars that stayed. I don't see guys like Lautaro leaving. I think Lautaro would stay. His entire career is Inter, and the entire real career. Like obviously he was in Argentina, but you know what I mean. I mean, guys like Sommer would leave. I think Dumfries for sure. The older guys would be like, I'm not going to do this. Maybe the very old guys like De Vrij or Cherby would stay, but I think Bastoni would leave, and that's someone I could see us going after. I could see Juventus doing it too. I see Juventus moving in quicker, Napoli moving in quicker. I don't think we would spend the money that Inter would request of us to do it, and I feel like the bad blood between Milan and Inter has really ramped up over the last 5-6 seasons. So I don't know if the players would be down for that.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm finding it hard to even really begin to think about it because, like, a lot needs to happen before we're even talking about Inter getting relegated, right? But like in a hypothetical, say they were found guilty of whatever breaches and they got bumped out of the league, I think you're totally right. I think there'll be a decent group of loyalists who would stay around to try and get them instantly back. The ones who were in their prime, just past their prime, might think I ain't got time for this. Then you've got the ones who are boyhood fans of the club, like DiMarco and probably like Frattesi and stuff would hang around. Bastoni's meant to be a Milan fan, isn't he? I think he grew up as a Milan fan. So if we just go in and say we can make you realise your dream into here's 20 million, you need it, then yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I don't think so. I think Thuram would go. In fact, I still think Thuram might leave. I keep seeing interlinked with strikers, and I'm thinking it ain't coming to be third choice.
Well, Arnautovic is left on a free. Correa is left on a free. So I think there is a need.
Oh yeah, they need another striker, but I don't think, for example, I don't think it's going to be Lorenzo Luca.
No.
They're not going to spend 30 mil on a backup. Yeah. So it makes you wonder if there might be somebody else to go there. I I can't give too much to the idea. I'm sorry. On the Twitter, Milan Forza 7 asks, since this team isn't getting any better, name me your favourite spell from Harry Potter.
I've only seen the movies once. Don't give a fuck.
I'm not. Yeah, I've never been part of the hype for that. Really. I remember it being amazing when I was a kid and it came out because, like, that first film, the special effects and stuff were way ahead of its time. You know, it was actually great. And I think I've read the first 2 or 3 books. I can only think of one, and that's Wingardium Leviosa. So I'll go with that. And I don't even know what it means.
The one that killed
Expelliarmus as well.
Oh,
maybe that's it. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, there is that one.
It's abracadabra, but they say it differently.
Yeah. Abdurrahman asks, how can we trust this management with all that happened last year and what's happening with the start of the Mercato? Well,
you can't.
2-part answer. Number 1, you can't. Yeah. Number 2, it isn't. I'm not viewing this, and I would urge everybody to try and look at it through this lens. Mm-hmm. I'm not viewing this as the same management anymore. Yeah. I think the management that decided that they could run the transfer window the last 2 summers without the prerequisite experience have taken a step back, and they've handed the reins to Tari and Allegri. And that's why, okay, it is going to be painful to sell Reinders. We are going to have to replace starters if Teo and Maignan leave. But give him a chance. Tari and Allegri are the ones who are running this transfer window, without a doubt. Now, they might have some diktat from above in terms of this is what you've got to spend. Like, I don't think that selling Reinders for 55 million permits us to go and spend 55 million on one player. Like, I think that there'll be certain things, they're operating within certain guidelines, which is only logical. We've not got any European football next season, but we have seen Tare do his best work under pressure. We have seen Juventus in financial difficulties still win things, you know, and we've seen Allegri sort of work with the shackles on and the shackles off. So I'm just willing to give them 2-3 transfer windows to see what they want to do with the squad. Like, if we're going to hire these new people to run the new project and stuff, but we're going to write them off because they didn't do what you think they should have done, like, what's the fucking point here? We might as well just stuck with the old management then. You know?
For me, and I've gotten hate for this, is, you know, until I'm given a reason, you get my support. I'm a supporter of the club. I want the best for them. So I'm going to back whoever comes in because I hope that they are the right person for the job, and I hope they do a good job.
Yeah.
But then you burn the bridge, and it's like, okay, I don't trust you anymore. Furlani, Moncada, you know, like when they came in, when they replaced Maldini, I said, okay, this is who it is. I'm backing them. And then they proved that they shouldn't be backed, and so I no longer back them. It's as simple as that. It's not flip-flop. It's not whatever garbage spewed you see online. It's just that's the reality of being a fan, is I don't have a choice but to support. So when they come in, I'm going to say, okay, this is the guy now. And then if you give me a reason to say you're not the guy, then I'll say it. And right now, Tari is showing that he's far more competent than the previous management. The names we are linked with, I guarantee the listeners, and you as well, you know this, you've heard of every single player we've been linked with. You know these names. You know who they are. They're known quantities. They're not the Tingus Pinguses. And yes, the Tingus Pinguses is what found us Reinders. That's great. But it's also what got us a load of other bozos, you know? Yeah. And this time we're going for people that are like, yeah, that guy went for 75 mil a few years ago to Juve. Okay, he's dropped off, so we're probably not getting Vlahovic. That's fine. But you see, Milinkovic-Savic, highest save percentage in Serie A last year. Oh, he's 29. Okay, who's the next one? Oh, Svilar, the guy who had the second highest save percentage, and he's younger. So everyone that's leaving, everyone that we're looking to replace them with, has been a good player. I don't even know if they're downgrades. There maybe not be upgrades, but Modric, Ballon d'Or winner. Okay, he's 40. Granit Xhaka, okay, he's 31, but he's really good. Samuele Ricci, yeah, we were linked to them before anyways, whatever. Rovella, good player. Caviglia, good player. Leone, great player, young player. We're linked with the right people. Cambiasso, probably the best left back in Serie A right now. I mean, Adoji, another good player. Dodo,
the strikers,
another right back we need. the league top goal scorer. I mean, everyone knows these players are all good. So yeah,
you said it right. You said it right in the chat where it's like, because there's a bit of mystery about why we'd go for Retegui because, and I do think this, he's basically the same as Jimenez in mold, right? But you said like, don't act like you wouldn't be gassed if we signed the Capocannoniere winner, and it's spot on. It's so true. Like, of course we would be. Even if we were to go out and get Vlahovic, I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna work.
Exactly.
Mitrovic, we were linked with. I'd take him. I mean, I know that's pushing it a bit more in terms of your salary, and he's a bit older and stuff. But like, these are good players. You know, we're not being linked with, I don't know, like Pinamonti to be the new striker or whatever.
Yeah.
And this isn't us saying that all these or even some of these names are going to arrive, but I think it's indicative of like what we're trying to do here. We're trying to focus on players for the starting 11, which we have to do. The most interesting thing to me will be the midfield rebuild and what we do with that.
Because it needs a total rebuild.
Yeah, because I think that's where the bulk of the money needs to go. And I'm interested to see what he thinks of the players that are already there, namely Fofana, and does he think he can get a tune out of Musa's work rate and stuff. Another thing as well, and I think this is an important point, because it's been relevant for Liverpool this season. Sometimes you underrate or ignore the aspect of a quality coach coming in and coaching the players you have now to be better. You know, like who's to say that everyone that we had last season is a write-off again?
Yeah.
You know, he may invent a system, or he may create roles and responsibilities for players that really gets the best out of them. You know, we might see some players come out of nowhere to be good. So that there's that to factor in. But in terms of, the bodies that arrive, I think we are going to be looking at a new starting goalkeeper, a new starting left back, and probably 2 new starting midfielders. That's what the point of intrigue is going to be this season, and the midfield in particular, because I think that's where the bulk of the budget will go. But every single midfielder we've been linked with, I've been okay with, even up to like Rabiot and stuff. And they're saying that, you know, Rabiot wouldn't be the crowning jewel. We'd still be going for an Italian regista type player to control games. I can see it working. I can see a plan, you know, and I'm not saying it's all going to work out okay, but for now, it's early June.
Yeah,
we've got a bit of time.
That's the issue. Is the targets give me confidence, the departures give me depression. So where does it balance out? Which one is going to be higher? I don't know yet, but we'll find out in August. Yes,
is the answer.
8 plays.
Yeah. Radun, we'll wrap it up there. Raduno, by the way, has been brought forward. The preseason meeting has been brought forward to July the 7th because Allegri wants to get an edge on our rivals, who are all meeting up a bit later, which is smart. Yeah, definitely smart. Juventus and Inter could still be deep in the Club World Cup and all that stuff. That's important. So yeah, I'm look, I'm not going to say I'm overconfident or way optimistic or anything like that, but I'm calmer than a lot of other people seem to be at the moment. And
I mean, look, it's going to be really hard to do worse than last season. So I am confident that we will do better. How much better? I don't know. But minimum top 4 has to be not even the objective, the guarantee.
The requirement, yeah.
With a guy like Allegri, with these players, with these targets.
1 game a week.
We should be back in Champions League by the end of next season.
And it should be comfortable.
Yes. Like it should not be the final match day of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. No pressure then. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you're enjoying these off-season episodes. Give us a shout if there's anything that you would like us to cover, and we'll be back later in the week for a bonus episode. I will put in the comments on the YouTube all the categories that we had for the end of season awards, and you can reply with your picks. But yeah, in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
See you guys next time.